Good morning and welcome to Unlock series. Today we are going to take a look at Unit 14, which forms a part of your English for Career text, and Unit 14 deals with reported speech. We are all familiar with news reports. Have you noticed how a piece of news gets reported, especially those news items involving the views of political hits or celebrities? They are reported either as a gist of the person's views or they are quoted verbatim. So to say, the exact lines as uttered by the celebrity is quoted. So this basically is called as reporting. And in grammar, we have two kinds of reporting, or we have two kinds of reports: reporting directly and reporting indirectly. And both of them together comes to be called, or both of them together constitute what is called as reported speech. So I told you we have a direct means of reporting. At the same time, we have an indirect way of reporting. Direct way is we are going to quote the lines of the lines as quoted or as exactly uttered by a person, and indirectly is just to give a gist of what the person said. So direct is quoting a person verbatim as you're going to use the words exactly as used by the person, and indirectly is to just to tell someone what the person has been telling. So these are the two kinds of reports that you can come across in reported speech. We have the direct speech and the indirect speech. Now let's take a look at what a direct speech is. So for convenience, I have given a picture here, and the boy has fallen down, and you can see spots of blood on his leg. So he says, "I've hurt my leg." So that is the exact lines as used by the boy. So there is actually a dialogue box wherein you can see the line uttered by the boy: "I've hurt my leg." So that is the line uttered by the boy. So when you report it directly, you say, "I've hurt my leg," moaned the boy. So the boy was in fact crying and he was mourning, and he says, "I've hurt my leg." So it is directly reported. So direct speech refers to the original words of the speaker, the words as used by the speaker. So when you report something directly, we use the words as used by the speaker. The exact words are quoted. We don't miss anything out. The line as exactly uttered by the speaker is used for direct speech. Now I have given an example here. Ray said, "Anne is a beautiful girl." So, "Anne is a beautiful girl" is the exact line as uttered by the man called or the boy called Ray. So, this is called as direct speech. You are telling or you are reporting the lines as uttered by a person. This is called as direct speech. Now, what is indirect speech? Indirect speech is when you want to give the meaning of what the speaker has said. You're not going to reproduce the exact words of the speaker, but rather you are going to tell what the speaker meant. Now, here we have a picture and also a dialogue. So, the girl is talking to somebody over the phone, and this is what she says: "He said that he would call me the next day." So, somebody rang up the girl and told, "I will call you tomorrow." So, instead of quoting the exact lines as used by the speaker, this girl is telling her friend, she's using the indirect speech. She's telling that he said that he would call me the next day. So this is called as indirect speech, to give the exact meaning of what the speaker says without reproducing the exact words. Now another example that is given here is, Tom told his mother that he was hungry. So, what would be the direct form of it? Tom said to his mother, within quotation, I am hungry. So when you convert it into the indirect form, or when you want to tell it to somebody else, you say, Tom told his mother that he was hungry, instead of saying Tom told I'm hungry, because that would create a lot of confusion in the listener. So you want to reproduce the words, or you want to tell somebody what Tom had uttered, but then you don't want to reproduce the exact words. So what would you do? You would convert it into the indirect form, and you say Tom told his mother that he was hungry. So this is called as indirect speech. So direct and indirect speech together constitute reported speech in grammar. So we have direct speech and indirect speech. And for as far as students are concerned, for competitive examinations as well as for your school examinations as well as college examinations, you are asked to convert a sentence from its direct form to its indirect form, which is from the direct speech. Very often the direct speech would be given and you will have to convert it into the indirect form. So there are certain rules to be followed while doing it. So direct speech to indirect speech. So here we have the picture of a grandma. She's also talking to someone over the phone. So from the indirect speech, it can be understood that she was talking to her daughter. So what does the grandmother say? I'm baking cookies for Jean, or Jean as you can call in French. I'm baking cookies for Jean. So so the grandmother or the woman, the old woman, she's talking to her daughter. So it can either be the daughter or the daughter-in-law, doesn't matter. So I'm baking cookies for Jean. So this is what she tells over the phone. So the person listening to her is reporting it to her daughter, to her son. Grandma said she is baking cookies for you. So it probably could be the mother. So the mother is telling the child or telling her son what the grandmother had told her. Grandma said she is baking cookies for you. So that is indirectly reported to the child. So grandmother was directly telling her daughter, I'm baking cookies for Jean. And the mother reports it in the indirect form to the son. Grandma said she is baking cookies for you. Okay, now it is quite easy to convert a direct speech to indirect speech, provided you keep certain criteria, certain rules in mind. So if you follow these rules, if you keep these tips in mind, it becomes easy. So what are the rules to be followed while converting a sentence from the direct form or from the direct speech to the indirect speech? The first set of rules that we are going to analyze is what happens to the tense of a sentence. How does the tense of a sentence change? So in the first instance, or in the first case, if we have a sentence in the simple present tense form, and while you're converting it from the direct speech to the indirect speech, the simple present tense form will be converted into the simple past tense form. For example, the boy said, I love to eat ice creams, which it is in the simple present tense form. And when you convert it into the indirect speech, the sentence becomes, the boy said that he loved to eat ice creams. So from simple present tense to simple past tense. Now in the second instance, suppose we have a sentence or we have a speech that is reported in the simple past tense. On converting it into the indirect speech, it becomes past perfect. For example, the boy said, I loved to eat ice creams. And on converting it into the indirect form, it becomes, the boy said that he had loved to eat ice creams. Now let's take a look at the third instance, where we have a present continuous sentence, a sentence that is written in the present continuous form. What happens? It becomes, or it gets converted into the past continuous form on being reported indirectly. Danny said, my mother is baking cakes. So what happens to the sentence when you want to report it indirectly? Present continuous will become past continuous. Just like simple present becoming past, we have the present continuous becoming past continuous. Danny said that his mother was baking cakes. So this is the third instance. So these are simple rules which can be registered in your mind and that can be used when you write your examinations. Now we have another instance here. For example, if we have a direct speech in the past continuous form, a direct speech wherein the sentence is in the past continuous form, what happens? It gets converted to the past perfect continuous. So that is the change that takes place. For example, we have Debbie said, I was cooking pasta when Sheba arrived. So how do we convert it into the indirect form? On converting it in the indirect form, we get the sentence as Debbie said that she had been cooking pasta when Sheba arrived. So that is the fourth instance. And suppose we have a sentence reported in the direct form, which is the present perfect. For example, what happens to the present perfect sentence on conversion, on converting it into the indirect form, it becomes past perfect. Johan said, I have finished my homework. So this is a present perfect sentence. When you convert it into the indirect speech, how does it become? Johan said that he had finished his homework, which is a past perfect sentence. And in the last instance, we have if we have a present perfect continuous tense, if we have a sentence that is directly reported, if the sentence is in the present perfect continuous tense, what happens? On converting or on transforming it in the indirect form, the sentence becomes past perfect continuous. For example, Nehal said, I have been waiting for an hour. So on converting or on transforming it in the indirect form, it becomes Nehal said that she had been waiting for an hour. So this actually gives us instances of how the tense changes when we convert a direct speech into the indirect form. So just to take a recap, we have the simple present tense becoming simple past tense. If we have it as simple past tense, it will convert itself into past perfect. If it is in the present continuous, it becomes past continuous. If it is in the past continuous, it becomes past perfect continuous. If it is present perfect, it becomes past perfect. And if it is present perfect continuous, it will get converted to past perfect continuous. So there are other changes also that you can keep in mind. What about these words that are present in the sentence? Like auxiliary verbs and modal verbs. Suppose we have these words, how does it change? If there is can will become could. For instance, he said, I can come. He said that he could come. Then we have may and may getting converted into might. It may rain. He said that it might rain. And shall become or shall will become should. Will be converted into would. He said, I will come. He said that he would come. Then used to is retained as used to itself. Ought is also retained as ought. But if we have must, it will become had to. For example, for example, uh, he said you must do it. So when you get it or converted it into the when you convert it into the indirect form, how does it become? He said that I had to do it. So these are the changes that would come over or come over these words that are used in sentences. So if you keep these set of words in mind too, it would become easy. Okay, so these are the other changes. And another tip or another important aspect that you have to keep in mind is if the reporting verb is present or future tense, for example, say, says, or will say, there is not going to be any change in the tense of the verb in the direct speech. Now, for instance, they say Anne is a good girl. Okay, so when you convert it into the indirect form, it becomes they say that Anne is a good girl. It's not going to change. There is not going to be any change. So if the reporting verb is present or future tense, like say, says, or will say, there is not going to be any change in the tense of the verb when you convert it into the indirect speech. Okay. Now, there are certain rules to be followed while you're converting certain kinds of sentences. Now, in the first case, we have statements. So, when we have statements, that is the link word that is used for all kinds of statements. And when there is no object, the word said is retained. But in the case of a sentence with an object, told, or any other apt reporting verb is used. When you have statements, when you have plain statements or plain sentences, the link word that we use is that. And it should be noted, if there is no object in the direct speech, then said is retained. But in the case of the presence of an object, then we convert said into told or any other suitable or apt reporting verb. When I give the example, it becomes easy for you. For example, we have Nathan said to me, I'm eating now. I'm eating now is a statement. It's a plain sentence. It's a statement. So in Nathan said to me, I'm eating now, there is an object. Nathan is talking to someone and it is stated in the sentence. Nathan said to me, I'm eating now. So if it were to be written as Nathan said, then said would have been retained when it gets converted to the indirect form. So what has happened to the statement here? In the statement, in the sentence that is given here, in the report that is given here, there is an object. Nathan said to me, I'm eating now. So as per the change, what should happen? We have to convert said to told. Nathan told me that he was eating then. So in statements, when you have statements, when you have to convert statements into the indirect form, these are the things that we have to keep in mind. That is the link word, and if there is no object, then set can be retained. But in case there is an object, then we have to convert said into told or any other suitable form. It can even be Nathan informed me that he was eating then. So that is yet another suitable reporting verb that can be used. So this is with statements. Now next is, let's take a look at what happens with interrogatives or questions. Now, in the case of interrogative sentences, we have to change said to asked or any other suitable reporting verb. So, any other suitable reporting verb can be inquired. Said can be converted to asked or inquired. And then that should not be used as a link. So that was the link for sentences. That was the link word used for statements. But for in the case of interrogatives, we do not make use of that as a link word. And suppose we have questions beginning with a question word like what, were, why, who, whom. What have you to do? We have to use the same word as the link word. I have given an example here. Leno said to the girl, what is your name? So what is the question word here? And what happens when it is converted to the indirect form? We have to retain the question word. Leno asked the girl what her name was. So in the case of question, suppose we have a direct speech with a question beginning with the question word what, where, why, who or whom, we have to use the same word as the link word. As in the example that is given here, Leno said to the girl, what is your name? And when it is converted to the indirect form, it becomes Leno asked the girl what her name was. Now, for questions that begin with a verb, the link word is either if or whether. And the subject should be written first and then the verb. Look at the example. Danny said to Debbie, can you give me this Bluetooth device? So it's a question. Can you give me this Bluetooth device? So what happens to the center? What happens to the question when it is converted to the indirect form? Danny asked Debbie whether she could give him that Bluetooth device. So what was the rule? For questions that begin with a verb, can is a verb. So for questions beginning with a verb, the link word is either if or whether. And remember, we have to write the subject first and then the verb should come. That is, Danny asked Debbie, can you give me this Bluetooth device? Can is the verb in the direct speech. When you convert it into the indirect form, the subject should come first. That is, Debbie, she should come first and only then can. And remember the changes, can will be converted into could. So Danny said to Debbie, can you give me this Bluetooth device? And on converting it into the indirect form, it becomes Danny asked Debbie whether she could give him that Bluetooth device. I hope that it is clear to you. And finally, what happens with exclamatory sentences? Suppose we have a sentence, an exclamatory sentence. We have to change said to exclaimed, and that will once again become the link word for all exclamatory sentences. So, when you have an exclamatory sentence, the first thing that we have to do is we have to convert the exclamation into an assertive form. For example, what a wonderful dress this is. So that is an exclamatory sentence. When you make it into a plain sentence, into an assertive sentence, it is, this is a beautiful dress. So first of all, we have to change it in our mind. We have to change the exclamatory sentence into the assertive form and then change it into the indirect form. So Anne said, what a wonderful dress this is. So naturally, when you convert it into the indirect form, it becomes Anne exclaimed that it was a wonderful dress. This is a wonderful dress. That is the assertive sentence. This is a wonderful dress. And you have to convert. So that becomes a simple present tense. When you convert it into the indirect form, the simple present tense should be converted or should be transformed into the simple past tense. So Anne exclaimed that it was a wonderful dress. It is quite easy. So these are some simple things that you can keep in mind and this actually makes it easy for you to convert direct speech to indirect speech. So I hope things are clear to you. If you have any doubts, please do get back to me. Thank you for your patience listening.